Her family traded her for gold, but the Alpha saw her power and took her back. The only silence colder than a tomb is the silence of a home that never wanted to hear your worth. The towering, bronze-armored figure of Alpha King Freeman Marsh and his retinue of mounted guards, as seen in the image, ominously block the setting sunlight over the wheat field. The king's arrival is announced not with a demand for gold, but a chilling order for a tribute of service, a person to attend to his needs at the castle. Lynn's father, urged by the desperate, grasping hand of her mother, shoves Lynn forward toward the king. His words are the cut that propels the story, explicitly linking her trade to her perceived biological failure. "Take her, your majesty. She has no use to the pack here. She carries no future due to her infertility. She is a loss that costs us nothing. Take the useless daughter, and spare us the harvest." This act brutally confirms Lynn's core wound of being useless and disposable, and thrusts her from her miserable life into the adventure of the king's court. The journey to the castle, framed by the towering, indifferent stones of Alpha King Freeman Marsh's fortress, was a blur of dust and dread for Lynn Jones. She expected the suffocating closeness of the servants' quarters, but was taken to the king's personal suite. She stood by a heavy, curtained window when the king finally entered. Freeman Marsh was an imposing shadow against the waning light, his armor polished silver and black, his presence a heavy weight in the room. He did not approach. He simply stood, radiating an intense, silent energy, his gaze sweeping over her, looking for something the gold couldn't buy. Lynn held her breath, refusing to shrink, aware that her silence was the only weapon she had left. The king watched Lynn for a long moment. "You are to wait upon me at the evening meal. You will stand by my chair, silent, and anticipate my needs. You will not speak unless I directly address you, and you will not weep. Do you understand your role, commodity?" Lynn met his gaze and gave a single, firm nod. That evening, she stood sentinel, moving with quiet precision, refusing to allow her actions to be clumsy or subservient. Later, as the king retired, his beta, Gareth, approached. "She did not weep, your majesty." Freeman removed his heavy crown, his eyes distant. "They sold a servant, Gareth," he repeated, "but I believe they delivered a problem. Something with too much pride to break." The following night, Freeman Marsh pressed her on her betrayal in his private study. "Tell me, Lynn Jones, what is the true price of the daughter deemed useless for breeding? Is it the few coins they pocketed, or the hollow space they left in your chest?" Lynn felt the shame rise, but refused to break. She looked directly at him, choosing not to speak, knowing any spoken defense would sound like a plea. Her silence, full of suppressed pain and stubborn pride, was her only truth. Freeman realized her true worth was not her beauty, but her fierce, unbroken spirit. He picked up his book, a flicker of respect in his gaze. "You are dismissed," he commanded, the tone subtly altered. The king's court was a dazzling, merciless place. Lynn was now a fixture near King Freeman's throne, enduring mocking words from nobles. "Look at the peasant, thinking silk makes her noble," and traded for a purse of gold, a cheap piece of royal decor. King Freeman offered protection through simple proximity, his shadow a silent shield against open aggression. However, Baron Darien, a man whose wealth was only matched by his ambition, saw her low-status vulnerability as an opportunity. He watched Lynn not as a curiosity, but as a weapon he could use against the king, plotting to exploit her common blood. During a royal feast, Baron Darien challenged Lynn's presence, demanding she be handed over to him as befitting her actual status. "Hand her to me, sire. I shall ensure she learns the humility befitting her actual status." The hall fell silent. Lynn took one step forward, her voice trembling slightly, but clear. "My Lord Baron," she said, "my parents' betrayal does not define my existence. I was sold, yes, but I am still a person, not a piece of furniture to be claimed by whim." It was the first time she had openly spoken in court, defending her own right to exist as a person, not property. King Freeman Marsh descended the steps of the dais, his voice dangerously soft, aimed at the Baron. Your title is purchased with generations of greed. Your value to me is negligible. He then looked at Lynn. Her worth is not in blood, nor in coin. It is in her unbreakable spirit. That, Baron, is the material of a queen. He pulled out a heavy, silver pendant, a subtle, unmistakable queen's mark, and slipped it around Lynn's neck. She is not your property. She is mine. Not as a slave or a prize, but as a choice. Her presence near the throne is not an insult to your lineage. It is a judgment on your lack of soul. A royal summons ordered Lynn's parents to present themselves at the castle, expecting further payment. They were ushered into the great hall and saw King Freeman Marsh upon his throne, and standing calmly to his right, radiant in a gown of shimmering silk, was their daughter, Lynn. Lynn's mother gasped. Her father stood frozen. They had traded a daughter they deemed worthless for a paltry amount of gold, only to find that she was now elevated higher than any noble. Lynn met their gazes, seeing not love or apology, but the palpable dawning of regret, the agony of realizing they had sold their only chance at proximity to power. The father attempted a nervous bow. Your Majesty, we await your command, and perhaps the further installment? Freeman's voice was like grinding stone. You sold me a woman you deemed worthless. I reject the price. I reject the transaction. He walked past them and stopped in front of Lynn. He cupped her jaw, forcing her to look up. Your father measured you in gold, he declared, but I measure you in worth. You were a prize to them. To me, you are a queen. He took her hand, cementing the choice. He gestured sharply to his guards. Send them away. Let them take only the memory of what they discarded. Lynn watched as her parents were led out, their faces etched with the bitter, final realization of their profound shame. She was formally reclaimed, not by a new owner, but by her own destiny. 1 year passed. Queen Lynn moved through the halls with earned confidence. Her deep understanding of the common folk made her advice pragmatic and just, tempering the king's ruthlessness. Late one evening, they stood on the high battlements. They whisper that I made a fool's choice, taking a commoner, Freeman murmured. Lynn leaned into him. They whisper what they fear. They fear that dignity and worth can be found anywhere, she replied. Freeman turned her to face him. And you, Lynn? Do you ever regret the price your parents set? The betrayal was agonizing, she said, but it was also the point of my elevation. That field is no longer a symbol of shame. It is the birthplace of a queen. The ultimate betrayal had been transformed into the ultimate elevation, cementing their rule.